Hi, Arcfieldweather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday morning, January 5th. A lot to talk about this morning. First of all, earlier today there was some freezing rain in parts of the Mid-Atlantic region, primarily along and to the east of I-95 in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. Especially hard hit was the state of New Jersey, where some freezing rain caused plenty of icing especially on back roads earlier today. Temperatures are creeping above the freezing mark right now and certainly will climb well above freezing over the next several hours, reaching the 40s this afternoon. The winds will start to increase out of the southwest over the next couple of hours in the Mid-Atlantic region, all ahead of the next cold frontal system that comes through tonight. That frontal passage will usher in a cold air mass for the latter part of the work week, and we indeed have some accumulating snow on the way for the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S. Thursday night into the day on Friday. Another cold blast is destined to arrive early next week into the northeastern quadrant of the nation. Let's talk about a teleconnection index don't frequently talk about here, called the Pacific North American Index here, the PNA. We focused in recent days and weeks on the MJO, the Madden-Julian Oscillation, which indeed gave us a pretty strong signal that colder weather pattern was coming for the central and eastern U.S., and we are now there. The PNA is another teleconnection index that's important as well. It involves the temperature and precipitation pattern, a wind pattern that's going on in the Pacific Ocean region, especially the northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean. And oftentimes in the winter, in the past few years, we've had a strong jet stream blowing in from the northeastern Pacific Ocean across, let's say, the Canadian-U.S. border region, more or less in a west to east type of flow. We call that a zonal flow. That kind of a jet stream bottles up the cold air up across the western part of Canada, Alaska, and it really inhibits it from coming south and east into the central and eastern U.S. And that strong jet stream will occur if the PNA is in negative territory. Throughout the month of December, this PNA was in fact in negative territory. Indeed, we had a warm month in the eastern part of the nation. But take a look at what's going on right now and over the next couple of weeks. First of all, this is where we stand right now with the PNA. This is the neutral line right here, this black line right here. The black represents observations throughout much of the month, and really in the entire month of December. The PNA was in fact in negative territory, kind of indicative of that strong jet stream blowing in off the Pacific into the northern part of the U.S., kind of bottling up the cold air at least from reaching the central and eastern U.S. But now, over the next couple of weeks, it's at neutral territory, maybe even a little bit of positive territory. And this is another signal that confirms the idea of colder blasts will be making their way from Canada into the central and eastern U.S. Well, let's now take a look at an area we haven't looked at in a few days, the upper part of the atmosphere, 10 millibar temperature pattern. This is way up at the top of the atmosphere, the stratosphere, and there is a warming event going on right now. This is a top-down view. The North Pole's right in the middle, right here, right in the middle of this particular map. The U.S. over here, and notice this blob of warmer air, relatively warmer air. It's cold air, but it's warmer than what we're seeing over here. This is associated with the typical cold polar vortex sitting at the top of the atmosphere. It's kind of being displaced a little bit because of this warming on the other side of the North Pole. And notice the orientation of this right now, oriented more or less kind of northwest to southeast, cutting across the eastern part of the nation. Over the past several weeks, it was really more or less oriented from the northeast to the southwest, and indeed, that's at the time, cold air was really noticeable in the Pacific Northwest, southwestern part of Canada, California. Now that kind of has shifted a little bit, and the colder air has shifted as well into the central and eastern U.S. Well, let's now take a look at a computer forecast model run. This is the 0Z run of the GFS, the operational version of the GFS, kind of a broader view of North America. Wanted to show our cold air source region, what's going on in Alaska and western Canada over the past couple days. These are the 850 millibar temperature anomalies. Going back to yesterday morning, I'm starting off this sequence of maps here from Tuesday morning, and I have focused in a lot on the Alaska cold in recent weeks, and it's primarily because it is an important source region for cold air that can come into the central and eastern U.S. They have had a lot of snow in Alaska. In fact, Denali National Park ended up with receiving about 6 feet of snow during the month of December. In fact, at the end of the month of December, there were 5 feet of snow still left on the ground. That both records, the record snow depth at the end of the month of December, the highest snow depth ever recorded in Denali National Park, and the record snowfall for the month. And just yesterday morning, at this particular time, early Tuesday morning, temperature right in this region right here, right, there's a small village named Eagle, right near the Alaska-Canadian border, dropped to negative 60 degrees yesterday morning, Fahrenheit, Tuesday morning. That is just incredible cold, even by Alaska standards. And now let's watch what happens here. This is the source region right now, western Canada all the way up into Alaska, and not one but two cold air masses which originate over Alaska, western Canada, impact the mid-Atlantic region and northeast U.S. over the next several days. And let's take a look at this movement here. This is now into Wednesday morning. This morning right here, notice this little area here started up over western Canada and Alaska, and these are way, way below normal temperatures, and it just plows to the south and east Thursday morning. This is tomorrow morning now, and comes all the way full bore right into the eastern U.S. by Friday morning. So this is Arctic blast number one, with its origins up in Alaska and western Canada. Notice regeneration of the colder than normal air over that same part of North America, western Canada, Alaska. This is a very cold air mass, and what's interesting here is we have some snow coming to the mid-Atlantic region, northeast U.S. tomorrow night into Friday morning, and this air mass coming is so cold, no mention of rain. I think whatever falls will be entirely in the form of snow in places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. It's not often you could say that for a winter storm in the mid-Atlantic region, but indeed this will be a cold storm, a cold air mass. Don't be surprised if during the snow temperatures actually drop in a dry, cold air mass into the 20s, and because of that cold air, we'll have high snow to liquid ratios. In other words, the snow that falls tomorrow night into Friday morning in the mid-Atlantic region, in the northeast U.S. will be kind of the drier snow, lighter, fluffier, powdery type snow, which can accumulate a little bit more than heavy, wet snow. Now, let's move forward here into the upcoming weekend and then the early part of next week. Look at this, sitting right on top of the region by early Saturday in the mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. And look at this back in the source region right here, Alaska, western Canada, rebuilding of that very cold air. When you have deep snow cover, that's what happens in this time of the year, where it's dark almost round the clock in much of this part of North America. This time of the year, you have a deep snow cover, the cold air will just regenerate, and that is indeed what is happening in that part of North America. Now watch as we go into Saturday, the first batch of Arctic air kind of starts to pull to the east, and we actually have a little bit of a milder stretch coming on Sunday. Another brief warm-up, but then a piece of this Arctic air breaks off from western Canada, Alaska, and drives again to the south and east, and looks like it'll reach the mid-Atlantic region, northeast U.S. early next week. This is the Monday afternoon forecast map. Again, we're looking at 850 millibar temperature anomalies, and this has the potential to be some very, very cold air, perhaps single-digit type cold in the I-95 corridor region. Certainly New York City, Philadelphia has a chance of being single digits here, and keeping in mind we could have additional snow cover. There's snow cover right now across D.C. area, Delmarva Peninsula, southern New Jersey, not so much across the Philadelphia, New York City, Boston corridor, but that could change tomorrow night into Friday morning. And this kind of cold air moving on top of snow cover could have easily single-digit temperatures early next week. Well, now let's take a look at the 500 millibar vorticity field, again using the 0Z run of the GFS model, and again looking at the broader view here, the North American view. This is Greenland up here, Alaska right here. This particular wave of energy is associated with the incoming cold blast number 1. The cold frontal system itself is crossing the northern plains of Great Lakes during the day today. It passes through the eastern U.S. in the overnight hours, ushers in that very cold air for Thursday night, Friday, especially Friday night going into Saturday. This stretched out area of energy, this stretched out area of vorticity is associated with the potential storm for Thursday night into Friday for the mid-Atlantic and the northeastern part of the country. And watch what happens here as we move forward. First of all, the frontal system passes through the overnight hours, passes through the eastern U.S., and then by the time we get into tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, this is the area of energy to watch, and it will help to spawn low pressure across the southeastern states that ends up off the mid-Atlantic coastline. We go, into the evening hours tomorrow. This is Thursday evening. Here is the upper level disturbance that is the all-important upper level disturbance, and exactly how deep it dives to the south and east will dictate in some fashion or another how much snow falls in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. It then pulls away off to the north and east by the time we get to Friday night. Well, now let's take a look at the surface forecast, the surface forecast maps from the 0Z GFS model. Right now, that cold frontal system I was talking about is located over the Great Lakes region right in this fashion. This is the Wednesday morning forecast map from the 0Z run. Here is the next cold frontal system, low pressure over the Great Lakes. Milder air will flood in this afternoon into the northeast. An increasingly strong southwesterly winds, and temperatures will jump into the 40s, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. But then, as we move forward, that cold front dives on to the south and east. It passes off the eastern seaboard by tomorrow morning. Precipitation starts to break out over the Tennessee Valley tomorrow morning. And notice here a very, very impressive high-pressure system. This is associated with that cold blast of air pushing into the northern plains, cold air diving to the south here across the upper part of the Midwest. And here's the area of precipitation that we'll be watching during the day tomorrow that certainly can impact mid-Atlantic, northeast U.S. with snow tomorrow night into Friday. Let's move forward. And here's the development of that wave of low pressure in the mid-Atlantic region by tomorrow night. This is associated with that upper level feature that will help to generate this surface low pressure system, and it will intensify as it pushes off the mid-Atlantic coastline. Exactly how quickly that intensifies will be kind of an important factor in determining the snowfall. But again, I mentioned earlier, looks like all snow in the D.C. metro region, Philadelphia, New York City, whatever falls. Not looking at a major storm right here because the system is moving rather quickly. It looks more or less like a moderate type of snowfall to me right now. Still changes are possible at this point, but perhaps 2 to 5 or 3 to 6 inch range in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. Again, minimal, if any, chance at all for any rain. It looks like an all-snow event here in this very, very cold air mass. And here we are. This is the late Thursday night going into Friday morning. It intensifies and then pushes off to the north and east. Some accumulating snow will extend all the way up into New England during the day on Friday. And some very, very cold air not only will follow the storm, but very cold air will accompany this particular storm system. Again, temperatures could drop into the 20s. That kind of cold, dry air will make it instead of a heavy wet snow, more of a drier, fluffier, lighter, powdery type of snow, which can accumulate a little bit easier than heavy wet snow. Then we go into Friday night. Very cold conditions Friday night, very likely into the teens, even in the immediate I-95 corridor region, especially given the fact that there could be snow cover along the I-95 corridor. Saturday stays cold. Then we have another quick, brief warm-up on Sunday. Right here we'll have the chance of rain, sleet, or snow showers associated with that warm-up on Sunday. When I say warm-up, I mean temperatures could go back up into the 40s again, but that'll be brief, as again here we have another strong cold frontal system right in this position right here come Sunday evening. That will drive to the south and east, perhaps an active frontal system that could have some rain, maybe changing to snow by Monday morning. And here we go into Monday afternoon, Monday evening, and this is just a very, very cold air mass. Winds will be strong out of the north and northwest. Very cold air. It pours into the mid-Atlantic, the northeast U.S. early next week. This is the Monday night forecast map. Don't be surprised to see single digits early next week in much of the northeastern quadrant of the nation. So a lot going on over the next several days. Stay tuned to arcfieldweather.com for updates later today and during the rest of the week. That's it for now. I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.